usually pass through this place. Napitia hii place nikienda shuleni every morning ama evening. Sasa hii nyumba ninaionaga hivi, I never thought that one day itakuja collapse. I'm so sorry for those who their loved ones have been injured. Kwa wale ambao maybe kuna wenye wamepoteza, I'm so sorry. Na naomba serikali ya kwamba ingilie kati as a young person. Ningependelea kwamba serikali ingilie kati, nyumba kama hizi zinapojengwa, serikali kaweza kuzikagua vyema so that we should never experience this in future.
Ukisema kuwa ulikuwa unaiona kuwa ilikuwa na shida fulani, ni kama kwamba ulikuwa unaona nyumba hii ilikuwa na ulegevu fulani wa ujenzi ama ilikuwa na ujenzi mbovu?
Yeah, I felt that this house haijajengwa poa because ilikuwa kuendelea kujengwa juu wakati chini bado ni kama haijakuwa so stable. Yes.
Okay, si tumeitwa watu wameangukiwa na nyumba, then tukaingia, tumetoa boy mmoja ambaye ni Mluya, mjunior baada amebaki ndani. Sasa hii story wanatuambia kuna rescue team Kisii, hatujui. Kisii, we don't know what the government is doing. Right now tunaendelea kusefu watu. Bado mnaona tuko kazi. Hivi vitu wanasukuma waja base aende Bale station, lakini bado kuna mtu amebaki na kuna watu wako ndani. Bado tunaendelea na kazi na tunawashukuru wale ambao wanashirikiana pamoja na sisi, lakini bado wale wako ndani tunaendelea kushirikiana, nataka kutoa pale watu ndani.
Na kwa majina dada, wewe pia waitwa nani?
Mimi naitwa Grace kutoka Kisii. And what just I want to say that tunaomba wanaojenga wawe keen wako wanajenga. Kwa sababu gani? Hii nyumba ilikuwa mzuri, lakini kufika kwenda juu waleka pillars zenye ziko weak. So ndio maana ikaanguka, lakini tunashukuru Mungu ambao wanazidi kuseviwa na tena ambao wanazidi kuwa pia ni sawa.
Now that is what we have from residents who are complaining in the manner of which buildings are constructed in Kisii. And we also find that most of the buildings have been marked by the National Construction Authority. They have been marked as unfit for people to go in. But we find that the buildings are still going up, despite the fact that they have been marked as buildings that are not fit for human to go in. But we are here on the scene, we are still following the story, and we'll come up with more when in our later bulletins. Back to you, studio.
Thank you very much, Fred. That is our reporter, Fred Maturi, braving the rain to bring us information about that 6-story building that collapsed at about 11 a.m. Several people feared dead, several others are trapped inside. He's been able to speak to the Director of Disaster Management in Kisii County, who says they have been able to save a few casualties who had minor injuries, but they have been taken to several hospitals in Kisii. But he is making a plea to the public, thousands of people or hundreds of people who've thronged the area, trying to catch a glimpse of what is happening and making it hard for the agencies on the ground to conduct the rescue operations. The Director of Disaster Management in Kisii County, Julius Tinega, has made a plea to members of the public to just take a step back and let rescue operations be conducted to save the lives, that as many lives as they would be able to in that particular rubble. Let's just take a look at some of the cases we've had on the collapse of buildings. And this is not the first. We have seen about 7 months ago in April, a building collapsed in Huruma. More than 40 people were killed. About 150 people were affected. It was a topic of discussion, made headlines for a number of days and a number of weeks there. And it saw President Uhuru Kenyatta order for an audit on several buildings in the capital. And the audit covered most parts of Eastlands, Dagoretti, Kasarani, Zimmerman, Huruma, where that particular incident happened, Githurai, Roysambu, and parts of Kilimani. And that report concluded that the building collapse, most of it is caused by poor quality of concrete, lack of a proper foundation, and use of substandard building stones. And from what Fred was saying, and from what we saw residents talking about, witnesses he was speaking to on the ground, most of them were blaming this collapse of this particular building on the shoddy work that is done, the poor quality of the concrete that is used. And it seems it's a story that is repeating itself from what we saw earlier this year in Huruma and the various other buildings we've seen collapse in the recent past. In April, a wall collapsed along Nairobi's Lenana Road and 3 people died. That was April this year, about 7 months ago. In March, a 4-story building in Zimmerman, Nairobi, whose construction was questioned 2 years before, collapsed. No one was injured since it had been vacated. Something that is repeating itself again. We understand that the quality of this building was questioned. It was even marked, the red mark that's usually put on buildings. It was questioned by the National Construction Authority, but it seems that questions are usually raised, but not much is usually done. And from what we see that happened in March this year, it is a repeat in Kisii, where a building is questioned, but people continue to habit. In May 2015, a perimeter wall at South B Mosque collapsed due to heavy rains, and 10 people lost their lives. In April 2nd, 2015, 7 people died, and many others were trapped after a building in Thika Road Mall and in Roysambu collapsed. And this is just taking steps back and looking at some of the tragedies we have seen in the recent past. In 2014, 1 person died and several others were injured when a 5-story residential building collapsed in Nairobi. In 2013, 9 people died in the collapse of a building under construction in the western city of Kisumu. In 2011, at least 2 people died when a 6-story building under construction in Nairobi collapsed. In 2009, up to 20 people feared dead in the collapse of a 5-story building under construction in Kiambu, just 12 kilometers from Nairobi. And in 2006, January, a 5-story building under construction along Ronald Ngala Street collapsed and 14 people died. We are just taking a flashback on some of the tragedies we've had as far as buildings and walls collapsing are concerned. This is not the first that has happened. And one of the things that is happening is we're seeing a repeat on some of the things we have been seeing. Some of the buildings that had collapsed, we understand that questions were raised about this particular building. Nothing was done. We understand from what witnesses say that one of them even mentioned that the pillars seemed weak. So it means that some shoddy job was conducted in this particular building. But if you're just joining us, a 6-story building has collapsed in Kisii town, and several people are feared dead. Several are feared to be trapped inside. Rescue operations are ongoing. Reinforcement officers from the Kisii County government are on the ground. The Kenya Red Cross is on the ground. Police officers are on the ground, but the weather is too bad and it seems to be slowing the people. Let's go back there where our reporter Fred Muturi is to just get more information on what he has from there.
Ulishuhudia nini?
Nilishuhudia tunafanya kazi hapa. Mimi naendesha ile mashini ya juu Ukraine. Ile ya kubeba, nilikuwa nimeshatoka kidogo kwenda kutafuta mafuta. Nikaja mwenzangu hapa alikuwa anaendesha hiyo. Sasa kufika hapa chini nikaona moshi kwenda juu. Nikapata nyumba imeenda chini. Kuna watu wako ndani saizi. Wameshikanishwa huko na hiyo nyumba baada hawajatolewa, na kuna wengine tumetoa kidogo kidogo. Hata pia engineer mwenye nyumba alikuwa hapo. Ndio gari yake imeshikanishwa huko chini.
Ukisema engineer mwenye nyumba alikuwa ni kana kwamba ujenzi ulikuwa unaendelea kabla nyumba hii kuporomoka?
Ujenzi pia ulikuwa unaendelea, tulikuwa tunajenga matofali, blaster ilikuwa. Sasa hii mashini yenye nilikuwa naendesha ndio hiyo ndio inapeleka mawe kwenda juu na mchanga pia na cement.
Nashukuru sana ndugu. Here we have another person who witnessed what happened here. Kwa majina ndugu wetu nani?
Naitwa Vini Gabana.
Yes, wewe nani?
Vini Gabana.
Vini Gabana. Gabana, ulishuhudia nini hapa?
Mimi nilipata ilianguka, tukakuja tukaona watu wametolewa kwa wengi. Kuna kitu vingi tunafanya huko.
Ulishuhudia nini sana
Nilipata nilikuwa huko chini, nilipata magari ilikuwa inaangalia, ilikuwa inapita vision inaangalia zaidi ya chini.
We have another guy who witnessed what happened here. Kwa majina ndugu waitwa nani?
My brother naitwa Jefferson Okemwa. Natoka Nyamira County. Hii ghorofa ambayo ni jirani hapa ni ya dadangu. Sasa mimi nimepigiwa nikiwa matanga nyumbani Nyamira kwamba ghorofa imeanguka. Watoto walikuwa wamejifungia ndani, lakini nimeenda hospitalini nimewaona wako in stable condition. Yeah.
Lakini ulishuhudia nini hapa?
Mimi nimekuja tu nimepata imeanguka, lakini nyumba ambayo ni jirani hapa ni ya dada yangu, my sister. Sasa nimekuja tu na kupata kwamba imeanguka. Na tulikuwa na wasiwasi watoto wako namna gani, lakini wamesaidika.
Twende. We have a response team here. Perhaps we want to see what is happening. They have come with some oxygen facility. Maybe we may find there's somebody who they are trying to pass oxygen to him so that he or she can be rescued. We can't gain access to that place because it's dangerous and may only professional or people who are trained to conduct the rescue process are allowed to go in there. But for now, we can see 2 oxygen equipment or 2 oxygen facilities that are trying to be taken down on the ground. Maybe people are down there asking for oxygen.
Wait a minute.
All right, that is the situation. A 6-story building has collapsed in Kisii town. It collapsed at about 11 a.m. and currently they seem to have rescued a person, and as Fred tells us, they're trying to get an oxygen mask to that particular person who has been retrieved from the rubble. Our crew is unable to get to where this particular victim is because it is said to be a very dangerous path in, and but as Fred informs us, they are trying to get an oxygen mask to one of the victims of this particular situation who has been retrieved from the rubble. Remember, it is a 6-story building that residents say was still under construction, but people were still living inside as well. And it had the red mark, meaning that questions had been raised about it by the National Construction Authority, meaning it wasn't a perfect job was not done on it, a shoddy job was done on it, but people still continued habiting it. Construction continued to happen on top to add more flaws from what we are getting from the witnesses. And rescue operations are ongoing. We understand that the people from the fire department are on the ground. Reinforcement officers from the county government are on the ground. The Kenya Red Cross are on the ground. I think we'll just cross over there. Our reporter is conducting an interview from one of the people in the response team. Let's just cross over there and listen in.
And they're trying to pass oxygen to the person who's down here on the ground below the building that has just collapsed. Ngoja. Wako wengi.
Kama 10.
Pale. Wako wengi, like 10.
Bana ya kuingiza. Akiziki tu ni emergency tuingize ndani.
Hapana, hiyo ukifungulia inaisha tu. Wacha tupate ile pipe ya kumchukulia hewa mpaka chini, sababu wako 10. Pale chini wako 10 na hapa hii mlango wako 10.
Watu ni wengi, karibu watu 5 wako hapo ndani.
Umewaona wewe? Umewaona?
Nimewaona. Nimeingia hapo.
Hitch there, but from what I could get there, one of the people who are on the response team is saying he's seen a number of people trapped in that particular rubble. He says he's seen them. It means we could have a number of people who are still alive in that particular rubble, and that is what the response teams who are on the ground are trying to work towards, to save as many lives as possible. If you're just joining us, a 6-story building has came tumbling down in Kisii town. Several people are feared dead. Several are feared to be trapped trapped under that particular rubble. The weather is not the best, hence slowing down the rescue operations that are ongoing. Again, raising question about the safety of buildings in Kisii town and the rest of the country. We had the same scenario a few months back in the beginning of the year in Nairobi that saw President Uhuru Kenyatta order an audit on all buildings, and most of the buildings that were affected were from Eastlands, areas along the Thika superhighway, areas like Zimmerman, Roysambu, Githurai, Huruma, where a building collapsed, a 7-story building collapsed, and so 40 people lose their lives. More than 150 people affected. And it looks like things are just repeating itself in Kisii town, because from what witnesses are saying, this building was under construction, but people had already occupied it. It had the red mark, which shows it is unsafe. And questions had been raised on just on how good the quality is of this particular building. Remember, as I mentioned earlier on in the year, President Uhuru Kenyatta ordered for an audit on all buildings, and most that were affected were in Eastlands and some areas across the superhighway. And a report that came out showed that most of the buildings are unsafe because of the quality of the concrete that was used. The quality of the buildings was questioned by the team that conducted that particular audit, and there were questions on the kind of foundations that are put on the buildings and the substandard stones that are used to bring up buildings. And this was the same reason why the building in Huruma came down and killed more than 40 people. Remember, our reporter Fred Muturi is on the ground trying to gather as much information as he could for us, even as the response teams on the ground try to rescue as many lives as they can. We understand that several are trapped under the rubble. Several are feared dead. A number have been rescued with minimal injuries. And this was according to the director of disaster management in Kisii County, who was making a plea to members of the public to just take a step back and let rescue operations continue. Thousands of people and hundreds of people have thronged the area to catch a glimpse. But let's go back there and just listen in to what Fred Muturi has for us.
We are from all other departments trying to rescue or to retrieve bodies of people who are believed to have been trapped inside here. Here I have residents who I can talk to. Perhaps they were here when the buildings happened, when the incident happened, sorry. And I have one person here.
Julius Tinega, the Director for Disaster Management, Kisii County. Actually, it's unfortunate of what has happened. But I want to thank most sincerely the community and the stakeholders who have come in large numbers to come and rescue, including the Red Cross.
As a disaster management guy, what can you take of the building that has just collapsed? And I understand it's not the first time that such a building is coming down in Kisii. What is happening in Kisii?
I do not want to comment so much on the structure of this building, but I will leave that to the engineers to come and give us the exact cause of what has happened.
Yeah, exactly.
So I cannot really give details about what has happened. But as you can see, it's weak. Yeah.
The incident happened at around 11 a.m. in the morning, and we understand rescue operations took time or the rescue people took time to come to this place. What happened? And it's 2 p.m. and we are still having some crisis here.
As you can see, the area where this building is standing on, the way that we are trying to access it, and you can see the large crowd of people controlling the crowd has also been a challenge. But we are trying to persuade the public to step aside and allow the experts to go deeper and try to find out what has happened. And our main business right now is to save life. That's our primary objective. We want to save life, then the rest will follow. At the moment, we are just focused into saving life.
And as a disaster management guy, we understand buildings are coming down in Kisii. Yeah. You said you don't want to comment about what is happening in Kisii, about the collapse of buildings. But what is happening? Because I understand you coordinate with the National Construction Authority, you coordinate a lot of disaster management or disaster in waiting incidences. You coordinate that. What is happening in Kisii? Can you talk about it really?
I didn't say that I didn't want to comment, but what I'm trying to say is that we work as a team. We have different agencies. So I am in charge of disaster department. There is a different agencies. So, but as of now, we are focusing on saving life. And then the rest of the things, they'll follow, of course. Yeah.
When you say the rest of the things will follow, what will follow?
Right now, I'm just focused. And my business is just to see how do we save people. So the rest, we have suspended everything, and now our mind is focused to save people.
Okay, for you, are there people inside there? Have you retrieved any other body from there or any personal
So far, we have not retrieved anybody, but we have saved casualties who have minor injuries, and all of them have been evacuated to our referral hospital. And so far, so good. We have not really gotten any casualty. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Kwa majina ndugu waitwa nani? Ulikuwa hapa pengine tukio hili likitokea. Kwa majina ndugu waitwa nani?
Naitwa Onyango Law Francis. Mimi ndio.
Nini ulikuwa hapa tukio likitendeka? Maybe kama ulishuhudia lolote hapa?
Sikuwa wakati ilikuwa inatokea, ingawa nimefikia kama hivi tu karibu imetokea hivi, na ni jambo la kusikitisha sana tukiona mambo kama haya yakitendeka na serikali wanakosa kufanya kukagua jumba kama hizi zinapojengwa. Hili ni jambo la kusikitisha sana. Tungependa kuomba utafiti ufanywe na wale ambao hawakufanya kazi yao vilivyo wachukuliwe hatua ipasavyo.
Kwa majina ndugu waitwa ladies, naona kuwa kuna wanadada hapa. We have ladies here who have said they also need to talk. What is your name?
My name is Delphine. I'm a student at Kisii University. Mimi sikuwa wakati this thing was happening. I just heard from the school. Niliona kwa WhatsApp watu wakisambaza picha, then I decided to reach this place. Niona nini inaendelea, and I'm so disappointed kuona. I usually pass through this place. Napitia hii place nikienda shuleni every morning ama evening. Sasa hii nyumba ninaionaga hivi, I never thought that one day itakuja collapse. I'm so sorry for those who their loved ones have been injured. Kwa wale ambao maybe kuna wenye wamepoteza, I'm so sorry, na naomba serikali ya kwamba ingilie kati as a young person. Ningependelea kwamba serikali ingilie kati, nyumba kama hizi zinapojengwa, serikali kaweza kuzikagua vyema so that we should never experience this in future.
Ukisema kuwa ulikuwa unaiona kuwa ilikuwa na shida fulani, ni kama kwamba ulikuwa unaona nyumba hii ilikuwa na ulegevu fulani wa ujenzi ama ilikuwa na ujenzi mbovu?
Yeah, I felt that this house haijajengwa poa because ilikuwa kuendelea kujengwa juu wakati chini bado ni kama haijakuwa so stable. Yes.
Okay, si tumeitwa watu wameangukiwa na nyumba, then tukaingia, tumetoa boy mmoja ambaye ni Mluya, mjuni baada amebaki ndani. Sasa hii story wanatuambia kuna rescue team Kisii hatujui. Kisii we don't know what the government is doing. Right now tunaendelea kusefu watu. Bado mnaona tuko kazi. Hivi vitu wanasukuma waja base aende Bale station, lakini bado kuna mtu amebaki na kuna watu wako ndani. Bado tunaendelea na kazi na tunawashukuru wale ambao wanashirikiana pamoja na sisi, lakini bado wale wako ndani tunaendelea kushirikiana, nataka kutoa pale watu ndani.
Na kwa majina dada wewe pia waitwa nani?
Mimi naitwa Grace kutoka Kisii. And what just I want to say that tunaomba wanaojenga wawe keen wako wanajenga. Kwa sababu gani? Hii nyumba ilikuwa mzuri, lakini kufika kwenda juu waleka pillars zenye ziko weak. So ndio maana ikaanguka, lakini tunashukuru Mungu ambao wanazidi kuseviwa na tena ambao wanazidi kuwa pia ni sawa.
Now, that is what we have from residents who are complaining in the manner of which buildings are constructed in Kisii. And we also find that most of the buildings have been marked by the National Construction Authority. They have been marked as unfit for people to go in. But we find that the buildings are still going up, despite the fact that they have been marked as buildings that are not fit for human to go in. But we are here on the scene, we are still following the story, and we'll come up with more when in our later bulletins. Back to you, studio.
Well, that was earlier on our reporter Fred Muturi in Kisii town at the scene of the incident where a 6-story building collapsed. Several people are feared dead, several are trapped inside that particular rubble. And the information we are getting from the Kenya Red Cross so far is that 6 people have been injured. Rescue operations are ongoing. The Kenya Red Cross is on the ground. Reinforcement officers from the Kisii County government are on the ground. Police officers and other security agencies are on the ground. And that place, or the scene of the incident, that area is called Daraja Moja in Kisii town, where that building came tumbling down at about 11 a.m. But 3 hours on, or about 4 hours on, the operations are still ongoing. The weather is not the best. There has been heavy downpour over the last 30 or so minutes, or about an hour, and it is slowing down that particular process of rescuing those who were trapped under the rubble. Earlier on, we saw Fred Muturi speak to a number of the residents who are now calling out on the government, just asking questions on why there is not enough audit on buildings, why the National Construction Authority or relevant authorities are not keen on buildings that are being put up. Remember, this is not a new incident that we are seeing in the country. About 7 months ago, a building came tumbling down in Huruma, killing more than 40 people and affecting more than 150 of them. Reasons being the same, that the building was unsafe for human occupation. And let's just take a flashback on some of the major incidences that we've had as far as the history of building collapses in Nairobi are concerned. In April 28, 2016, a wall collapsed along the Nairobi's Lenana Road and 3 people died. Several were injured. In March 9, 2016, a 4-story building in Zimmerman, Nairobi, whose construction was questioned, also collapsed. And remember, as we talk about this building that collapsed in March, the construction was questioned. And what we're getting from witnesses in Kisii town, the Daraja Moja area, which is the area where the building collapsed, is that there was that red mark on that particular building, which means the building was unsafe and questions were raised, but construction was still ongoing from what we get. Reporter Fred Muturi also mentioned to manage to speak to one of the people who said he was working in that construction site, and it was an ongoing process. They were adding other floors on top. So it beats logic about the kind of audit that was ordered by President Uhuru Kenyatta on buildings that are besieged or that are said to be unsafe for human occupation. And this audit that was conducted mostly in Eastlands area of Nairobi City and parts of the areas that are along the Thika Superhighway, like Roysambu, like Githurai, like Huruma. We had Kilimani as well, Tome and Garden Estate. And this particular report that was taken back to the president showed that the reason why buildings are collapsing is 1, because of poor quality of the concrete, 2, lack of proper foundation, 3, the use of substandard building stones. And the National Construction Authority said it was going to bring down all buildings that were brought up under questionable circumstances or did not follow the right procedure that is required to put up a building. And of course, it opens a conversation afresh on how safe are the buildings in this country. It ceases to be about Nairobi. It has happened in Kisii now, so it means it ceases to be a conversation only in the capital city, Nairobi, but of course in other parts of the country, like we are seeing in Kisii. If you're just joining us, a building came tumbling down at about 11 a.m. in Kisii town, an area called Daraja Moja, and this building is said to be behind the Mwalimu Plaza in that particular area. We understand the Mwalimu Plaza is quite a popular place in Kisii, and 6 people so far have been rescued and have been injured, and this is information according to the Kenya Red Cross. Rescue operations are ongoing. Response teams are on the ground. The disaster management team is on the ground. The Red Cross is on the ground, reinforcement teams from the county government, as well as security officers who are having a hard time controlling the hundreds of people who've thronged the area just to catch a glimpse of what exactly is happening on the ground. And earlier on, our reporter managed to speak to the director of disaster management in Kisii County, Julius Tinega, who made a plea to members of the public to just take a step back and allow for the rescue operations to be conducted swiftly. There is heavy downpour as well in Kisii, which means it is slowing down the process of rescuing those people who are in. But according to the director of disaster management in Kisii County, he says their concentration now is not to question what exactly happened, but to save as many lives as they can. And we understand several of them are feared to be, are suspected to be trapped inside the rubble. One of the witnesses who was interviewed said that they think that a number of people are inside there trapped. They could be alive. So all the efforts are pointed towards rescuing as many lives as possible in that particular rubble. But of course, as I said, it opens a conversation afresh on the safety of buildings in this country. And it ceases to be about the Nairobi, the capital Nairobi, where an audit was ordered by President Uhuru Kenyatta. And the report showed that most of the buildings that are tumbling down are because of a shoddy work done, substandard work done. So it could just as well run up to other parts of the country. The county government will also come to question as well on the safety of buildings in the county. And of course, KTN